2024 has been the year where woke gaming has come to die. It has been a thorough repudiation of obsessive DEI policies kicked off by Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League while killing only itself. Gamers finally coming together and realizing that, yeah, no, all of this stuff, even if we like the game, like the company, we just can't continue to support this stuff, okay? If you're gonna ruin our franchises, insert your own personal politics into our games, it's just not going to fly anymore, man. It didn't really work to begin with, okay, and now it's just become so obnoxious, so at the forefront where we're just not going to take it anymore. It's been glorious to see, but we haven't really been able to quantify how correct we have been, because you can just simply go on vibes and feelings, but I would rather comb my hair with a Mack truck than rely on vibes and feelings. So now that we have quantifiable data from a couple of large companies with rather sizable sample sizes, we can really show you that if these companies are trying to push DEI policies, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as having proper representation in games because we want our audience to feel seen and heard, you're not really doing a good job. At least the way that you've been trying to do it over the past few years, after the past few decades, if we're being completely honest, because the audience that you want is different than the audience that you have. And if you continue to try to chase after that audience, that mythical modern audience that you want, you're going to continue to jettison the audience that you have. But let's take a look first here at Capcom. Capcom was running this big old community poll. It looks like it, brought in over, a 250,000 Capcom fans. I didn't hear about this poll to begin with, and to be honest, I'm not really the biggest Capcom fan. I played Onimusha. I think I played Devil May Cry 4. I've gone back in the cut and filled in the gaps in knowledge that I had when it came to Mega Man. That's probably my favorite one that's up there. But of course, some fighting games and stuff like that, and I'm not really a big Resident Evil guy, so I respect Capcom. They're definitely one of the biggest players in the space. It's just not really a personal favorite of mine. Okay, but I can still appreciate what they're doing, minus their scummy microtransactions tactics, okay? Like how overpriced a lot of the Street Fighter stuff is, and also, how they nickeled and dimed any success that Dragon's Dogma 2 could have had in the long term. But anyways, all of that aside, okay, we're asking several questions of their audience, and like it says right there, total votes 254,148 respondents. So what were they looking at? What did they find right here? So these are the people who who voted in the Capcom Super Elections, and the first thing that you see right here is going to be shocking. Okay, and they break it down by sexual orientation, male, female, and unfortunately other category. And well, you can kind of see, I guess I'm trying to slow roll it, but the little graph right there kind of ends up, burying the lead, or exposing and spoiling it for everybody. But of the respondents, 82% of it is male. 82% of the Capcom gaming audience, of the 250,000 people, 200,000 of them, those dastardly males. And to be honest, when it comes to Capcom, they don't really do, at least as much as I'm aware of it, okay? Like when it comes to Resident Evil, they haven't raced and, gender-swapped Leon Kennedy or Chris Redfield or anything like that, okay? Haven't given Chun, like a big old jaw or anything like that, or made Dante deep-throat his sword, okay? They're not really known for doing any of that stuff, but I'm sure they probably, tickle a couple of consultancy taints along the way, so things considered, they're probably the most straight and narrow company that's out there, at least in the bigger space, okay? But breaking these numbers down a little bit further, people who did respond broke down by, yes, their age brackets, so teenagers, 8%, but then, like what we know in general when it comes to gamers, 20, 30, between 20 and 40 years old. That's the biggest swath of your demographic. That's accounting for all but 11% of your audience. Your 20 to 40-year-olds, people who are inundated with all of this garbage day in, day out, that just simply want to play a game to relax, to enjoy it for what it is, not to be beat over the head with the policies that they probably experience at their job every single day. And this isn't just an American thing. This is 220 countries, 28% from the United States, 21% from Japan. This is a pretty good swath, a pretty good cross-section of gamers, but they were, voting on number one character, the number one title that Capcom has put out, Dante and Devil May Cry 5. I hear nothing but good things about Devil May Cry 5, so that totally makes sense. It's kind of crazy that not a Street Fighter is up there. What's the highest ranking? Holy shit, it's not even in the top 10? That's kind of crazy, right? DMC 5, okay. Dino Crisis, that's a deep cut, okay. Resident Evil 4 Remake, DMC 3, Monster Hunter World, Iceborne, so the is that an expansion? I think it was the expansion. RE2 Remake, Breath of Fire 3, oh, that's a shout out. Okami, Resident Evil 4, and Monster Hunter World. A lot of straightforward games right there. And just the top 10 games as rated by the male and the female audience. I mean, a little bit of overlap, for sure, but let me just tell you, there's probably a big reason why a new Phoenix Wright game isn't being discussed as much as a Resident Evil Code Veronica, a Resident Evil 5 remake, or even a Resident Evil 9 announcement. Because I'd imagine also, if you just go ahead and overlay the sales data on this stuff, I know the Resident Evil 4 was one of the best-selling games last year, and same with the DMC 5 back in 2021, I think that one came out. Monster Hunter World continues to print money, and yeah, Resident Evil 4 is one of the best-selling games of all time, so yeah, totally makes sense right there. But it's very fascinating to just take a look at what the respondents, what the actual audience is, response to a bunch of different questions are, but it's also very funny. It's very funny as well. Capcom would publish this. Shout out to them for at least running this and giving such a detailed breakdown. I do appreciate that, even though, as Grums points out, Capcom survey results are interesting. Rumor is Capcom was surprised by the results. Well, which results are we talking about? The survey shows Capcom gamers are overwhelmingly male. Yeah, I would say so. And prefer attractive characters with good gameplay. Yeah, that's what we found right here. Okay, that's one of the slides that are down there. Okay. Japanese respondents appreciate unique and attractive characters, exhilarating gameplay, and depth for repeat play. Whereas the other 75%, 80% of respondents, exhilarating gameplay, unique and attractive characters, and unpredictable and exciting storylines. So basically, we want fun games with attractive people. This is general sentiment around the world, and you're saying Capcom was surprised by that? This either reflects the view that the world that Capcom games are for men and that pandering for broader audiences and uglier characters should cease, or it will be used as evidence that Capcom needs to be more, needs to do more to include women. To me, this shows, yeah, what we've known all along, some games just appeal more to men, and that's okay. Well, we also looked at the best rated games on both demographics respondents, and there's a lot of crossover, especially at the top end of things. So yeah, imagine that. And then yeah, Capcom, after the mid-2000s, just absolute dumpster diving that they were doing as a company when they were genuinely earning the moniker of Crapcom, have become the gold standard of Japanese publishers. Okay, going completely multi-platform day one, having functional PC ports as well as on every single console that will go ahead and host them. They have become a money printing machine, one that Konami, Bandai Namco, and even Square Enix is hoping to replicate the success of. Because, like some of their business practices or not, they've been exceptionally successful. And you know why they're exceptionally successful? Because they aren't pandering. They aren't trying to change their base. They might be shocked by this, and now that they have this empirical data, maybe they can go ahead and, I don't know, make some more informed choices to further bolster their bottom line. Like I said, that's just Capcom. Okay, we have other examples just to go ahead and really drive this home, because now we have Activision. You might have heard of it, just a small little up-and-coming indie production house, and well, their numbers here show that 80% of their audience is male, 60% of it is also white. So if you're trying to do diversity and representation properly, shouldn't an overwhelming majority of your protagonists be straight white men? I'm just wondering, guys. It's almost like, yeah, what you preach is different than what you practice, okay? But the numbers and information that is on display, especially over at Activision, because who knows what Capcom is ultimately going to do with those numbers. Based on their recent track record, probably look at that and go, yep, you know who's buying this stuff? Cool. We're just going to continue to do exactly what we're doing because we're not pissing off our audience. We had volunteers come out and respond to our surveys and continue to buy our products. Meanwhile, over at Activision Blizzard, how was that response to Diablo 4? How many people now are you pissing off by putting Call of Duty on Game Pass day one? Just wondering, guys. But this leaked Activision Blizzard DEI 3-year plan is 10 pages, 35 slides. The programs, initiatives, streams, panels, hiring processes, dev process that is so dense. How do they have time for making games? Well, to be completely honest, like outside of Call of Duty, when was the last time you heard Activision literally do anything? Blizzard, when was the last time you heard them do anything productive? That wasn't trying to make every single Overwatch character game feature lame, pathetic, and every character gay. Is that their main focus? I mean, looking at these slides a little bit further, leaked Activision Blizzard is too far gone and infested with DEI. They recently circulated a 3-year plan, even more woke. In games, DEI are women into fabric, of all our efforts, serving as a cornerstone of our planning process. And let's just go ahead and run this back one more time. Right. Okay, women are the cornerstone. 20% of your audience. Presents a roadmap for 24 to 26, the inclusion strategy map. Every element of the game development cycle and pipeline touches DEI in some way. AI voice chat moderators to enforce DEI compliance with players. We've seen that before. The Inclusion Game Design Council staff with external experts, you can guess, yes, and academia to empower teams to be inclusive. Embed exposure to DEI programming from day one for all new employees. Building safe spaces inside the company for every group under the sun. Plans to diversify representation in characters and stories. Again, representation in stories, representation in characters. What's more profitable, chasing 80% of your audience or 20% of the audience? You know why they're doing all this stuff, but I'll fill you in with my ideas at the end of this. Use DEI goal setting to foster accountability. This is probably related to DEI score on review that I mentioned before. Host an internal live video series, Press Pause, that trains employees on diversity storytelling and culture of support. Host cultural events continuously internally. Think celebrating hip-hop and Call of Duty creates inclusiveness. I'm sorry, what? Backs and attends numerous DEI panels. Tracks an inclusion score for every employee. Ensure marketing is culturally sensitive. Yes, exactly. We need to put black people on them slides, and we need to make sure that they're in basketball jerseys, because that means that it's going to be racially sensitive. This is what they're focusing on. It's not about making games. It's not about making good games. It's not about listening to your audience either. And I'll link this thread, because shout out to Grums for actually aggregating all of this stuff and not throwing up over his keyboard in a visceral protest. Companies like Activision, Sony, Microsoft, all the ones that unironically employ these goofy-ass consultancy firms, they're chasing after the female dollar. Now, I did a breakdown of the rise of the she-economy. Now, what is that specifically? Most women are going to be single and career-oriented by 2030. Half of the female population is going to be unwed by, I think, 2040. I think that's when all of this stuff ends up going into practice. Could be earlier, it could be later, but regardless, it remains the same. And why is that important? Because you take a look at who controls the purse strings. 80% of household budgets are controlled by women. Who has the most disposable income due to the fact that they're all single, they no longer need a man, so that they can just simply justify their crippling student debt. And who has the most disposable income? You guessed it, those boxed wine enthusiasts just looking at that piece of paper that's on the wall. It keeps them shackled to their soul-draining jobs in HR at these DEI companies that continue to push this feminist intersectionality DEI narrative. It's a very self-defeating prophecy. And the ultimate end goal of feminism, as somebody who likes to understand his enemies, I've done a fair bit of research when it comes to the ultimate origins of feminism, and it was always to end up at this point. Create a larger tax pool, create a larger consumer base in order to accrue the most money possible. I'm not one of these people that are going to strap on the tinfoil hat and say BlackGuard or BlackRock and Vanguard, they're the ones of the ESG scores. No, it's far simpler than that. They're going after the disposable cash. And where's the disposable cash? From all the chicks that think that they're free and independent because they went to school for 4 to 6 years, took on hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt because they would rather take on all of that responsibility, all of that burden, all of that built depression because they hate beta men that much. And now it circles all the way back around as to why those numbers, why we're in the 80% point. because men would rather get out of the dating scene. They don't want anything to do with those chicks that are spending all of that money, accruing all of that wealth, becoming as masculine as possible. They'd rather check out into video games. You can see why why we are here. The societal perspective. This is societal engineering. The government, these corporations got exactly what they always wanted, because a house divided cannot stand. When you continue to sell and peddle lies, you're just going to drive that division further, pushing each party into their own corners, never again to meet in the middle. Unless, of course, you're Capcom, playing it right down the middle to both sides. And at least in these crazy times, walking away with millions of satisfied customers. Best of luck to you, Activision, but I guess you don't need it when you have $69 billion from Microsoft. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.